Okay, so welcome everyone, Susie and Elaine. Nice to see you again. Welcome on Easter Sunday. So let's have a look at our email for today. So just send out your quote, and there's a bit of teaching. See if anyone else joins us. So share my screen. Okay, so there we go. Got the tech ready. Yeah, can you see that? Excellent. So yeah, if you one of you wants to read the quote, that'd be great.
We often think we know what will make us happy, but the science shows our minds don't always point us in the right direction. We long for fame and money, or a beach body, or a new car. We expect these things will make us happier. It's just that those expectations are flat out wrong.
Okay, so by a lady called Dr. Laurie Santos, a professor of psychology at Yale University, produces the Happiness Lab podcast. I've had many downloads, many listens over the last few years, particularly during COVID. It was very popular. It was launched start of the COVID pandemic. So there's a particular episode on Stoicism, which should resonate with you, as it shows that the ancient Greek and Roman Stoics 2,000 years ago were practicing very similar techniques to those that Yeshua recommends, A Course in Miracles. So Stoicism, one of the key teachings was reinterpreting, reframing, they even called reframing, seemingly negative circumstances as challenges designed to build their character. So the Stoic would say, well, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? Which is exactly what we're doing with Course in Miracles teaching. And, most modern sort of positive psychological theories are based on similar principles. It's all about reframing, reinterpreting, telling yourself a different story about what's happened. You can't control what happens to you directly often, but you can control how you respond to it. We always have control of our mental and emotional responses, whatever happens to us in life. And that's really one of the key Stoic principles. So an interesting listen. It's only about 20 minutes, half an hour podcast, which you can click on there and have a listen. And you'll see that these principles we're studying are very ancient, and they're in many parts. Many different paths have hit on similar ideas and truths. The Course has just, in my view, taken it to another level of understanding, because it gives you the whole picture. It gets you to understand the metaphysics of the dream and the illusion that we seem to be living in, whereas the Stoic philosophers didn't necessarily understand that. But there was an element of truth in the way that they dealt with the illusion. So modern scientific research supports what the Stoics and other spiritual teachers like Yeshua have taught about how to experience happiness consistently for thousands of years. They did a study called the Grand Study, which I mentioned before, at Harvard University to discover the answer to the question, well, what does make people consistently happy? And they surveyed a group of Harvard graduates. They were only men at that point, and then they expanded it to another socioeconomic group, I think also men. That was just how the world was in those days. But still very interesting research. They found that there were two primary factors that lead to happiness and lasting life satisfaction. Number one was warm, loving relationships. So genuinely loving, unconditionally loving relationships with people, with spouses, family, friends. And number two was not pushing love away, which is also key. So don't push love away, because that obviously will sabotage the warm, loving relationships. And so the chap who undertook the study said, one simple thing. He said, happiness is love. After 40 years of research, 80 years of research, the simple conclusion of the Grant study is that happiness is love. So this really is saying what many spiritual teachers have known for thousands of years. Happiness isn't to be found by pursuing external pleasures or goals, and that the emotional intelligence not to push love away is a critical factor in sustained happiness. So that aligns with the conclusions of Stoic philosophers like Epictetus. He was the major Stoic philosopher, credited with really, he brought out a book of sayings, which were very sort of pithy, and that was kind of the handbook of Stoicism. You can read it in less than an hour, apparently. And that aligns with things like the second noble truth that the Buddha stated 2,500 years ago, based on their observations of life. So the Buddha noticed that desire or craving, or as he called it, or attachment, as we call it, is the source of all suffering. Accordingly, that letting go of one's attachment to these cravings ends suffering. That was the fourth noble truth, that there is a way out of suffering, and that you can end suffering by letting go of attachment to cravings, letting go of craving, and there's no more suffering. So
it was a good podcast. I really enjoyed it, and those bits are really true. The loving relationships and that pushing it away, because this is where I sense that I've been pushing it away, and you don't realise, do you, until you have an open discussion or a talk or a podcast to make you realise what's going off. But it was very good. I enjoyed it. Yeah,
it was. I thought it was very on point, and very, you see how similar it is to this teaching of the Course, saying, well, things are not always, life's not always going to go your way. You're not always going to have your expectations met. You can have, some serious hardship sometimes. They had that example of James Stockdale, in the army or Marines.
Yeah.
He parachuted down. He got shot down. No, he was in the Air Force. So he was a pilot. He gets shot down, and he's parachuting down to earth, and bullets are flying around him. He's kind of going, well, I know that I'm in for a rough ride, because I'm going to be captured. I'm landing in enemy territory. There's no way that the Viet Cong are all over the place. There's no way I'm going to be able to escape capture. And probably I'll have to go through a really, really difficult time. And he did for 7 years. He went through an immense amount of what would have broken a lot of people, immense amount of physical abuse, torture, and somehow, not knowing whether they kill you at any point. You never know. Someone might just decide to off you. Could be every day, could be your last day. And so the Stoic philosophy of, well, how can this grow me? What can I learn from this? Was what got him through. And subsequent, when he finally came out of it and returned to normal civilization in the US. He became an inspirational speaker and really, taught this philosophy to many people. So out of every hardship is born something good if you allow it.
Yeah, that's the big thing, I think, the allowing. That's what I really took out of it. There seems to be huge, and I don't think we realise, do we? Are we allowing, or are we still holding back? It's a tough one to call sometimes, because you believe your intention is to do the best, but it's just realising. It was good.
Yeah, it's an awareness of what's really going on. So you have to go to spiritual principle then. So that's what he did. He started that journey. On the way parachuting down, he's kind of going, okay, I know what I'm in for, because he'd had some mind training, Stoic philosophy. He's like, okay, well, this is my opportunity to practice this and go much deeper into these teachings, because I'm going to have to apply them in order to get through, the inevitable challenges that are coming. And so, in some ways, A Course in Miracles is very similar. The Stoic philosophy in the world is saying, well, you are going to get tested. It's the world of the ego, but you have a way out of it, and that way out is radical forgiveness. It's letting it go and not being attached to the outcomes. And so I think it takes the Stoicism to another level, because you understand now why you should let it go, and why you should persevere, and why it's a growth experience, because you have the whole picture. You understand that this is your way out of suffering by letting go of your reaction to apparent suffering, by letting go of that really suffering in your mind, mental and emotional suffering. You are freeing your mind from disbelief in separation in all of its forms. So the Buddhist teaching talks about belief in separation in three, as manifesting in three types of desire or craving. So kamatana, which is craving for sensual pleasures, things like physical sensations, things and activities that stimulate them, such as food. Sex is an obvious one. Ingesting substances like alcohol or drugs. These are all sensual pleasures, which the ego tries to get meaning out of. It says, well, your meaning lies in getting pleasure out of these things. Of course, they're very short-lived. If we continue seeking pleasure, then they become painful. Too much food, too much sex, too much of substances like alcohol and drugs, and there's pain. It will come. That's the downside of every addiction, as any addict will tell you. So it clearly doesn't work. It's not a sustainable strategy for long-term pleasure. It's pleasure, but followed by pain. Often quite short-lived pleasure followed by a lot more pain. So that's clearly not going to work. We can see that from our own experience and the experience of many others in this world. Then the Buddha highlighted another form of craving, which was craving for being. So this is a bit more subtle. Okay, so I want to be something I'm not already on the level of form. And this is really what a lot of people are seeking. It's why the personal growth industry exists. Well, we'll show you how to be a better person, more richer, more famous, more beautiful, healthier, wealthier, more successful, and so on. And if someone's promising this is what they'll make you, a lot of people are willing to buy into that, literally with their money and their time. So yes, okay, I want to be wealthier, healthier, more richer, more famous, whatever, and you can help me how to do that. You can teach me how to do that. So, and then Bhavatana, which is craving for non-existence, and there's that talk over here, which is useful to have a look at that. Where Marisa Peer talks about this craving to be something you're not, and rich, famous, successful people are all that. And then craving for non-existence. So that's craving to not experience unpleasant things in the current or the future life. So that's aversion in English. Whenever you avoid something. So just give me a moment, because I'm actually at an Airbnb. The guys just come home. I'm just going to take a 5-minute break and just have a quick chat to him, because I'm actually sitting in his office right now. So I want to make sure that's okay. Otherwise, I'll move into the room. So give me a moment.
No problem.
It's interesting, isn't it, about these three?
The non-existence.
Yeah, and the craving for being.
Yeah.
You know, how we have that, you know, you can sense it, can't you, if you've lived your life, that, oh, you want to be successful, or you want to be something.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That, yeah, craving for non-existence.
Where we just don't want, the unpleasant, challenging situations. That's, it's taking the rough with the smooth.
Yet they come and go, don't they? And we're,
They really do.
yeah, and we're the ones that stop ourselves. We're the,
we just want it just to work for us all the time. And of course, that's the ego. And it is, it's strange. So, I mean, I'm more looking for just balance and simplicity, to be honest. No longer craving the fancy holidays, and just peace. That's my goal. But then again, that's a goal, isn't it? It's quite mind-boggling, really.
but it's amazing, because if you think about that awareness, we are in that peaceful state right now, although we're talking about something quite complex.
Actually, you're quite right.
Yeah, so we have that peace and we have that love, and we want to share that. We're being honest, we're being open. So I think there's not an awful lot. We're just taking in this a new way, just start having that discussion, isn't it?
Yes, well, it's again the complicated ego, because even when the traumatic things happen, even you can still sense there's something in the background that's, like the awareness and the peace. So it's removing that sort of chat and
but it's only chatting away because we've highlighted it now. It's more at our because before it's been doing what it's wanted to do and there's been no notice of it, and you just think it is who you are. And now that we brought that awareness to it, it's just like I said, I keep saying it's like a hungry hippo. As soon as you believe you've cleared something, and it just rushes in again, and you just think, I'm not going to say nothing next time, because it is like a hungry hippo.
It really is. It is. Because we all have our little issues for whatever it is, whether it's, I don't know, we're addicted to one thing or another, whether it's not necessarily has to be alcohol or drugs. I mean, mine was knowledge. I had to keep on top so that I could feel as though I was, lovable or good enough or enough, all of those things. But now that I've realized, I've just eased off all of that now. We're all grappling with one thing or another. And your husband, does your husband, is he in the same, is he also in his pure formless awareness, or he's just sort of a very grounded ego?
How would I say that? I think at the end of the day, I mean, I think about the book that I'd written, that I'm not here to change or fix anybody. I'm here to love and nurture people.
Yes.
Regardless whether it's family or friends. And I treat everybody the same. It doesn't matter whether you're the dustman or or family. But the more I do this, I tend to see that this is the egoic world that we feed on each other's egos rather than anything else, because that's all we know.
Yeah.
You know, to be fair. But yeah, I'm noticing a lot. So if I have any like down times or times where I think something's not right, I always know there's something in my mind fighting with what you've said or he said or she said, rather than anything else. I've started to realize it's very much a mind game more than anything.
Yeah.
And like if I hear anybody say, oh, that they're angry or something, I'll say, no, you're not angry. You think you're angry because something's reminding you of something, but it's the mind telling you that you're angry. It's the mind showing you their own pictures or stories or.
Yes.
So I find it fascinating.
Oh, it is, yes.
Yeah.
Well, in my situation, I've learned this last few months has been a complete turnover. So, and my mind is having to adjust to it because it's making, it's saying, screaming, but it's just my mind.
Well,
it's been aware of it. It's been aware of it and being silent with it, because then and when I'm recalling anything, I have to just now go back to silence, because whatever's happening is still listening.
Yes.
So you have to be really, really careful, because if you're not, it'll bite you on your bum.
Very true. Very true. Yeah.
We were just talking about the craving for non-existence and the beingness, the wanting to be successful or something. So are you sorted now, Jono?
Yeah, no problem. I can stay here for as long as I need to. So we can go for hours if we need to. But no interruptions and distractions. So wanted to have a look at the message of the crucifixion, which we didn't do during the course because we ran out of time on the final day. So it's a big section. It's 19 paragraphs. But well, if you're up for it, we can do that. So this craving for non-existence, vibhava, as it's called in Pali, in the Buddhist teaching, is a subtle one, because we actually we crave not to not experience unpleasant things. It's an aversion. So whenever you're in resistance, we call it resistance, modern psychological term, aversion. Whenever you're in resistance, you're saying this shouldn't be happening, which is how many people live their lives. So this shouldn't be happening. That is a version of craving, of desire, because you're saying, well, it shouldn't be happening this way, but it is. So now there's a dissonance, cognitive dissonance between what you expect to be happening, what is happening, and that creates suffering. So there's many ways. Craving is not just, oh, I want sense pleasures, or I want money. It's resisting what is, and saying this shouldn't be, the way it is, even though it's happening. And how often does that happen? How often do people argue with reality? It's happening, and then you go, no, this shouldn't be happening. It could have, should have been different, and then they create a resistance, and a negative reaction arises, negative emotional reaction arises because of an expectation that it should be different from what it is. And this way of letting go is saying, well, it's not really happening. So why are you making it real by resisting it? Do you see how the ego works? We make it real when we resist it. It's now we've given it the power to engender various negative thoughts and emotions in our minds, and so it's real in our minds. And then it has the power to really influence our thoughts and emotions and our lives quite profoundly, because we've given it that power. We've chosen to listen to this voice that tells us, well, this shouldn't be happening the way it is. I have an expectation. It should be happening the way I expect it. But who says? Only a deluded mind could say that, because by this age, you start realizing that a lot of the time life doesn't happen the way you expect it at all. I think John Lennon, it was a great quote, life happens when you're making other plans. Our expectations are just not met a lot of the time. So much more realistic and helpful to say, well, okay, that's how life is. That's how it's wired up. I can't keep expecting everything to go my way. So I need a way to deal with the inevitable challenges when things don't go according to plan or the way I expected. And that way is the way of letting go. Start dropping your expectations as you become aware of them. Usually we're not aware of them until they cause us pain. We become aware of them when there's pain and there's suffering. And then there's the opportunity to let them go and drop the entire thought system of the ego, this whole desire, craving thought system, which Yeshua calls seek and do not find. Seeking for satisfaction in the external world that invents in these dysfunctional ways and never finding it. This is the program of the ego. So we need a viable alternative to that, something's going to replace that really dysfunctional way of thinking and living. And Yeshua gives it to us in the Course in Miracles. Every spiritual teaching, like Stoicism, is trying to address this fundamental problem of human suffering and trying to guide us in how to live a better, more functional, happier life. That's why spiritual teachings exist, because clearly there's a problem in this world. Clearly, a lot of people are not happy. Happiness seems to be more dominant than unhappiness is. And nothing much has changed in 2,500 years. The Buddha noticed this and he said, well, life is suffering. First noble truth, life is a suffering. There's a lot of dissatisfaction or suffering, as he called it, dukkha, in the world. Nothing really has changed very much. We have, different kinds of societies. We have more modern technology, but in terms of human thoughts and emotion, nothing much has really changed, which is why these spiritual teachings are still valid, more so now maybe than ever before, because we've actually got more lost than we were before 2,500 years ago. Humanity's got very lost because we've thought that with the ego and this mechanism of craving and desire, that this can somehow fix the problem. And so we've pursued our desires, and we've invented all kinds of technology and a whole society designed to satisfy our desires, our short-term desires. We call it capitalism. And we go to work and we earn money to satisfy these desires. And this is supposed to make us happy. And then usually sometime in the middle of our lives, when we're 30s and 40s, we realize that it really hasn't made us happy. And that's when the spiritual journey really begins. So then we've got to seek for some answers. And we look for those answers in teachings like A Course in Miracles and Stoicism and other spiritual teachings. So the alternative to the ego's obsession, seeking for satisfaction in the external world, it invented in all these dysfunctional ways. So the craving for sense pleasures, the craving to be something that you're not, the craving for non-existence, craving to not experience certain things, all of that is dysfunctional. Seek and do not find, as Yeshua calls it, Course in Miracles. The alternative is to connect with and accept that you are love itself, which is the eternal source of all happiness. So it's a very, very simple remedy. You just accept I am this loving presence or awareness or essence itself. And if you fully do that, you will be indescribably happy. At its strongest intensity, this emotion is often called bliss or ecstasy. But even when you're busy thinking and doing, being connected to your source will create an underlying feeling of contentment and peace that we can call happiness or flow. So bliss or ecstasy are kind of when we really go into a non-dual state. We look at Holy Trinity diagram. It's this top level, we call it level 1. If you're really in pure formless awareness of perfect love, just immersing yourself in that, and there's bliss. You will experience what's called bliss. The Buddha called it nirvana. It's being called heaven. Many names for it. Now, practically, realistically speaking, you're probably not going to stay there for very long or very often. So what we've got to learn to do is stay in a state of functional awareness, or high awareness, guided by our true self and the Holy Spirit. And this is really where the Course comes into its own, because it's training us to do that. Saying, I'll show you how to be in a base state of happiness. You're not necessarily ecstatic all the time, but you're not unhappy. You're not unhappy. There's a base state of happiness and peace, or flow. It's also been called in modern psychological terms. Things are just going along all right. You're relatively peaceful. There's no drama. You're not creating suffering for yourself or others. As soon as you resist what is, then you create suffering for yourself and others, because you're engaging in this third version of desire, vibhavatana, and then things you must then perceive that things are not right. Things are wrong, and then you judge that, and suffering results. But all of that is unnecessary. When you understand these simple principles, you go, well, it's unnecessary, because I don't have to have that expectation that life should always be wonderful and bad things should never happen. I don't have to have that expectation. I can just take everything as it comes in this forgiving way, which means I'm not judging it. I'm not mentally naming, labeling, judging it based on my own preconceptions. I'm able to let go of that judgment and just allow it to be as it is. So to help you apply the insight in today's quote to every situation you experience, continue this process of full transfer of training, as Yeshua calls it. Is today's workbook lesson, and obviously we're meeting now to have a chat about it. So let's have a look at the workbook lesson, shall we? Some other stuff, watch Risen if you haven't watched it. It's a podcast by David Master, which is really good. Great, insightful commentary on the movie. So let's dive into the lesson. Okay, so my attack thoughts there. This is another review lesson, 56. So there's five lessons 26 to 30 that are being reviewed. So let's just read them lesson by lesson, and then there's some commentary on them as well. All right, so Susie, if you can read number 1.
My attack thoughts are attacking my invulnerability. How can I know who I am when I see myself as under constant attack? Pain, illness.
Yep.
Pain, illness, loss, age, and death seem to threaten me. All my hopes and wishes and plans appear to be at the mercy of a world I cannot control. Yet perfect security and complete fulfillment are my inheritance. I have tried to give my inheritance away in exchange for the world I see, but God has kept my inheritance safe for me. My own real thoughts will teach me what it is.
Okay. Alternatively, let's read it again and let's unpack it as we go.
My attack thoughts are attacking my invulnerability. How can I know who I am when I perceive myself as under constant attack? Pain, illness, loss, age, and death seem to threaten me. All my hopes and wishes and plans appear to be at the mercy of a world I cannot control. Yet perfect security and complete fulfillment are my inheritance.
So what's he saying here?
He's saying it is your birthright, isn't it? That you, the peace, the love, the joy is yours, and you've had the belief in the separate self for so long, and that is what's attacking you, isn't it? The pain, any illness, and it's where your focus on that attention is. Is it more on the pain? Is it more on the lies of who you believe you are, or you're going to follow the truth of who you are?
Yeah, well said. But if you look at honestly at human life, there is a lot of pain, illness. Seems to be, especially over the last few years with the COVID pandemic, seems to be a very widespread occurrence, loss. So people lose, we lose people, people die, lose money. Everything seems to be degrading all the time. There's a degradation, so we're aging, and ultimately death. Inevitably we're all going to die. So it's amazing we're not all completely basket cases, given what a human life is. You look at that, well, you've got to face all of this. Amazing anyone's actually vaguely sane. The only thing that keeps us sane is the truth. The truth is saying that none of this is really true. None of it's real. So you're not at the mercy of a world you cannot control, because you have this perfect security and complete fulfillment within you. And that awareness is your only salvation. Okay, so I'm going to carry on.
Yeah, perfect security and complete fulfillment are my inheritance. I've tried to give my inheritance away in exchange for the world I perceive, but pure formless awareness of perfect love has kept my inheritance safe for me. My own real thoughts will teach me what it is. And like you said, it is a teaching. This is the awareness for you to bring back your attention to the truth of who you are, and not the pain and not that loss, and because they are your attack thoughts. That's the constant attack that you're living by, isn't it, if you're not following the pure formless awareness.
Yeah, there's only two alternatives. You can't be in the ego and not have attack thoughts and fear and guilt. These go hand in glove with the ego, the idea of a separate self, as do love, peace, and joy go with pure formless awareness, perfect love. Yeah, so my own real thoughts will teach me the truth, what my inheritance really is. It's a very powerful lesson. My attack thoughts are attacking my own invulnerability. Whenever I attack anyone, I make myself vulnerable in my own mind. What typically happens in relationships is someone attacks, and then there's usually and a counterattack. So because they've attacked, they're not safe, they will fear attack. And often, the other person will attack them back, if not physically, then verbally. So it plays out in our experience. My attack thoughts are attacking my own invulnerability. So why do I then entertain these attack thoughts to start with? So a very profound lesson. My attack thoughts are attacking my invulnerability. To recognize this is a huge step in awakening. Okay, so I'm doing it to myself. All attack is self-attack. I'm doing it to myself. Effectively, I'm beating my head against a brick wall repeatedly. I'm suffering, I'm bleeding, it's painful, and I'm blaming the wall. I'm saying it's something with someone else is causing me to do this. It's the wall that's doing it to me. But actually, it's me doing it to the wall, because I have the power to change my mind in any instance. Okay, so any other thoughts on number 1?
No.
Attack thoughts are attacking my invulnerability.
No.
Elaine?
No, it's well explained.
Okay. So moving on to number 2 then. These ideas are all connected. So above all else, I want to see.
Yeah, shall I do that? Yeah.
Yeah. If you read that, and there's not much to translate, so read it in the alternative.
Right. Above all else, I want to perceive truly, recognizing that what I perceive reflects what I think I am. I realize that vision is my greatest need. The world I perceive attests to the fearful nature of the self-image I have made. If I want to remember who I am, it is essential that I let this image of myself go, as it is replaced by truth. Vision will surely be given to me, and with this vision, I'll perceive the world and myself with unconditional love.
Yeah, so the original was charity and love. But we decided charity was quite an old-fashioned word. So it actually means unconditional love. So the world I see attests to the fearful nature, the self-image I've made.
Yeah.
But what's being offered to me is another vision, another way of seeing, another way of looking, another way of perceiving, shall we say. Which is happening in my mind. And above all else, what I like about this lesson, above all else, I want to perceive truly. So there's nothing that I put above this. There's no desire. See how this overcomes our false desires.
Yeah.
Because above all else, I'm saying I want this. Above all else is a statement of determination, a statement that this is my priority. This is number 1 priority. To perceive truly. Most people go, what? No, above all else, I want whatever. The ego's goal is. I want another partner. I want a partner or another partner. I want money. I want something in the world above all else. But actually, the only thing that's going to work is to change my perception.
Mm.
So any further thoughts on that one, Elaine?
A very good lesson. Good lesson, yeah. I mean, this is what we all want. This doesn't mean to say that those things that we're chasing after, cars and houses and partners, it'll come if it's meant to come, but no force, I guess. It's not like you're having to give up everything in Matrix.
Yeah, you give up your attachment to it. That's really the key. You give up your desire for it, you give up your attachment to it, and then paradoxically things can come quite easily and effortlessly. I shared a miracle story with Susie earlier. She joined earlier and I didn't record it, but I'll share it with you. So do you remember, I think you probably do because you've been on most of the sessions. I talked about that situation I had a couple of years ago where this lawyer got involved in a payout and I got shortchanged on a fair amount of money, something like £7,000. Do you remember I described that?
If you remind me again.
Yeah, so it was. I'll just briefly, for everyone's sake, it's on the recording. I'll just talk about it again. So a couple of years ago, I had some money owing to me for some work I'd done, some corporate finance work. It was a commission on a loan that might help to arrange for a company in Swaziland, and there were a couple of people involved because it was through a corporate finance firm in South Africa, which subsequently was wound up and went into liquidation because the two partners fell out. But this money was still due and payable. So because this deal took like 4 years to happen. So we had an agreement as to how we were going to split it, which I'd actually drafted. The lawyer who's now had been appointed by the liquidator to kind of manage the affairs of the company signed it. It was like, okay, so we have an agreement. This is how it's going to work. There was no mention of fees, other fees that would be payable. It was like, well, it's just a straight percentage of whatever the amount is that's going to be paid. And he agreed to that. And then the first tranche, he was fine. He didn't do anything. Didn't say that there's any fees payable because he knew that if he did that and he violated our agreement, the guys who'd actually referred this client in Swaziland, Eswatini, that's now called, would take umbrage with it. They would have an issue. They would use some commission, and then the second payment may not be as forthcoming. They'd make a plan to reroute it somehow. So he was like, no, okay, that's fine. We're gonna save up all the expenses until we've got the second amount. And then he said, okay, no, now actually the expenses of the company, because it was in liquidation, so they had various liquidation expenses and so on. Those expenses should be shared. I'm like, that's ridiculous. That's for the company's own account. Those aren't our expenses. The company's liquidation has nothing to do with it, and we have an agreement. This was not included in the agreement. Why didn't you seek to include this up front? But he was unethical and dishonest, and decided he was going to do it anyway. He was going to take the money anyway, and was like, "Well, I've got control of it, so take it or leave it. It's not up to you guys to decide, even though we have an agreement." So I just felt, it's totally unethical. We had an agreement. He's violated the spirit of that agreement. He's basically stealing money because he wants to pocket more for himself. And part of me was outraged. The ego was like, should fight the good fight, take him to court, try and recover the money he's trying to shortchange. These kinds of thoughts were going through my mind. But there was, fortunately, the other side, the Holy Spirit was saying, no, you don't want to do that. So I listened. Fortunately, I got some guidance. Very clearly, it said, just take his offer. He made a much less offer than what I was due. Take his offer, and I'll sort it out. Just leave the results to me. So it was really the voice, and so I did. I listened. That allowed me to go and do a retreat, and following on from that retreat, we ran the first proper course, the Art of Letting Go course, with Sue and John Reynard, who subsequently referred Sally, and that's how this has all come about, this community. So it was all perfect, and I just let go of the money. And then a couple of days ago, some money just dropped into my account. It was exactly the amount that had gone missing, 140,000 rand, exactly that amount. So just like uncanny,
Wow.
which I didn't ask for, but it wasn't from that same source. It was actually from my parents. But nevertheless, the fact that the amount was exactly the same is too uncanny to be accidental. It's synchronistic.
Yeah. So you
It's
just
really
let it
showing
go.
me that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just went, okay, whatever. If I never get it, the Holy Spirit said, leave it to me. Okay, I'll leave it to you. That means
And
I'm not concerned about the outcome. I'm not trying to recover the money. The outcome's on your hands. And 2 years later, suddenly interesting that exact amount drops in.
did.
I didn't even ask for it. It just came.
Just
I didn't
did,
do
yeah.
anything.
Wow.
My parents just decided to pay out, early on inheritance or something.
Yeah.
I needed the money, and my siblings did, but I didn't have to do anything. I didn't orchestrate any of it. I didn't ask. It just happened.
Right.
So that's just the reason I'm sharing it.
So it's
Is because it's
otherwise
indicative of the spiritual principle.
or you could have been in years of conflict in courts. And
Yeah,
also,
I mean, I could have, and in fact, the guy died 2 months later, so I probably wouldn't have got anything. Would have gone down a whole track of trying to fight it and then trying to recover the money from his estate, which probably wouldn't have been that easy to do.
So it'd be horrible.
And a lot of stress and costs, because you usually have to get lawyers involved, which I couldn't afford. So the whole experience would have just
Would be
been
horrible.
really unpleasant.
Yeah.
Or just do what the Holy Spirit said, just leave it, let it go on your retreat,
absolutely,
and follow this, this way that I'm directing you, which has been to build this community and really dedicate time and energy to that, because that's constructive and positive rather than attached and ultimately negative. And then, 2 years later, exactly that amount drops into my account. You got to go, okay, if you don't see the signs when these kinds of things happen, then you're blind.
Yeah.
Exactly the same amount. Why that amount? For some reason my parents split it. They said there's more still to come. For some reason they split it. And it's exactly the amount that was short 2 years ago.
Amazing.
So yeah, it is pretty amazing. You got to go, wow.
How did that happen? Yeah. So there is something behind the veil, isn't there?
Yeah. Well, when I got the guidance, it was so clear. It was, I was chopping vegetables. I remember exactly. I was making a salad, and I'd been a bit inturbulated. It was like, that inner conflict when you can't make your mind up. It's like, yes, I should let it go, but I do need the money, all of that. And then just this voice, very calm, clear, just came in and saying, just accept his offer and leave the outcome to me. Leave the results to me. That was just such clear guidance. It dropped in a few seconds, and I was like, okay. And I just felt like okay.
So that miracle there is really giving you the encouragement to continue on this journey. Just these little, well, a big miracle, that one, but miracles are what's giving you the,
because it tells you that, look, these principles work if you will trust them. I mean, I honestly, if I'd hung on and I'd gone, okay, no, I'm going to be, attached to this, I'm going to go after the money, and I'd played that out. I'm really not sure how it would all have played out. I was due to run the course. But now, how can you run a course and letting go when you're not letting go yourself? It doesn't really work. It is a lack of integrity, and people pick that up.
Yes,
no doubt. It would have. So who knows what would have happened? But the whole thing would have played out differently. And I may not be speaking to you right now because I'm only speaking to you because of how it's played out. These things lead. One thing leads to another, You were referred by Jackie, who was referred by Sally, who was referred by Sue and John, who did that course in June of 2021, and that's all orchestrated by the Holy Spirit. So that voice, that guidance that I got, okay, just let it go, leave it be, leave the results to me, take the money and go do your retreat was the right guidance. That put this whole thing on a track, which is now 2 years later, it's really starting to come into manifestation. There's a community growing, there's more people than, I probably than I would have had.
And the world needs this, that's for sure.
Yeah.
After all the COVID. Yeah.
So that guidance was spot on. And fortunately, I listened. I wasn't stubborn enough to go, okay, I get clear guidance and I'll do it my way anyway. It's like, okay, that just feels right. It feels peaceful. It feels absolutely right. I knew in that moment. Yeah, absolutely. And it was just in time because the guy put a deadline on it. The next day, his so-called deadline for his offer would have expired. So I was like, okay, do it today. I sent him an email, said, yeah, no drama. I'm not going to fight you. There was no negativity. I just said, I accept your offer. Here's the invoice. And
the ego
within 24 hours, I had the money, and it was really easy.
And your ego didn't sort of interfere, because sometimes you come up with a peaceful decision, and all of a sudden the ego is still stepping in, isn't it?
Yeah, by and large, I was like, okay, it feels right, it feels peaceful, it feels like the right way. Do I really want to fight this guy? Do I really want to be in this turbulated energy of like, I've been unfairly treated, basically. I've been unfairly treated on the level of form. Yeah. He did. He violated a clear agreement.
Many people do.
There was unethical behavior on the level of form. But if you get caught up in that judgment, then you suffer. Because it's like, well, I've been diddled, I've been screwed, I've been unfairly treated. Now I'm 140,000 rand short, and I need that money. And you tell yourself a whole story, and you go down a whole track to try and recover it. And that's all attachment, isn't it? There's no letting go there. You're attached to the form, to the outcome, to your personal identity. It was like, the ego wants to go, how dare you do that to me? How dare you? You hear the story. How dare you? Who do you think you are? I'm going to take you on, dude. I'm going to show you who's boss. These kinds of stories and
it's horrible. It's horrible.
All self-identification, personal identification. So you see, and how the persona of the ego comes in and starts to tell you a story about who you are, and therefore react in a certain way, so that story gets perpetuated. The story of who you are gets strengthened through that whole situation. And that's its only desire is to strengthen its separate identity. It doesn't want to do anything. It doesn't want to do anything constructive or helpful. It just wants to strengthen that identity. And that strengthening that identity and going down that path is going to cause you pain, inevitably. So these teachings can really save you a lot of pain and suffering. It did me in that instance. Because if I'd hung on to the money, it wouldn't have gone that well. I needed it at that point to carry on this journey and carry on doing what I was doing. I'm not sure how it would have all happened. I think quite possibly the whole thing would have imploded. I wouldn't have been able to continue on this journey, and I would have had to stop the art of letting go. And we wouldn't be having this conversation if I hadn't listened. So the guidance, is there to really help you and save you a lot of pain and suffering, and help you on your path. And you
good
need
example
to listen.
That. Yeah.
It is a good example, yeah. And above all else, I want to perceive truly. It was exactly that. Above all else, above needing to be right, above needing the money, above all these form outcomes that the ego is attached to. Above all else, I want to see this truly, and I want peace of mind. My true perception is going to bring me peace of mind.
And you were well into this course then as well when that was happening. You were you were well into this, yeah.
I mean, I've been studying A Course in Miracles for years and teaching it, but you've got to walk the talk. There's no principles are one thing. But I know many people who study the course and they don't live by it. They don't apply the principles consistently, which causes them and others in their lives pain. and suffering.
It's
It's
the
if
level
you don't
confusion.
apply these principles, it does cause pain ongoing. So
Yes.
you have to apply them in your own life, in these situations. And those are the tests. That was quite a big test for me, but I passed it. I listened, and because I passed it, then everything flowed forward in a quite a nice, smooth way. And this community started growing. And then 2 years later, Spirit, oh yeah, I told you, because I had a feeling like, okay, the money will come in some way. Just like, say, just leave it to me. I'm not going to tell you exactly how, but just leave it to me. It was like, okay. And then 2 years later, in its own time, you're not in control of the timing. Exactly that amount drops into my account without me even asking.
That's amazing.
It is amazing, yeah. So, these are the miracles that are there to show us that, yes, this stuff really works. And that, you need to listen. When you get that kind of clear guidance, you really do need to listen, because it's there for you. It's happening for you. It's for your highest good to listen. And if you want to do it your own way, you want to follow the ego, you're going to cause yourself a lot of pain and suffering, unnecessary pain and suffering. So that's why it says, above all else, I want to perceive truly. I want to see. Above all else, I want to see differently. These two are really powerful, and it's very similar to lessons 20 and 21. I'm determined to see. Above all else, I want to see. So he repeats it again. Above all else, I'm determined to see. So he's asking us to be really, really determined and really vigilant in our thoughts and our perceptions with these lessons, so that we can start getting into the habit of listening above all else. So above all the distractions of the world, above all the ego stories and temptations, above all of that, I choose to perceive differently. So this is our only true desire. The wanting should be, I want only to perceive truly. I want to be guided in my thoughts and my words and my actions by the Holy Spirit. Above all else, that's my true desire. Because I know if I do that, if I want only that, that is going to take me ultimately to, it's going to take me home, back to heaven, back to true reality. So instead of praying for that, we pray for, true perception. Susie had to leave us because she had a table booked.
Yeah.
Okay. So any thoughts on this? Above all else, I want to see truly.
No, that's, you've made a good, amazing example. So very clear.
Okay, and the next one, above all else, I want to perceive differently.
I just read
so
the
very
alternate.
similar.
Yeah. The world I perceive holds my faithful self-image in place and guarantees its continuance. While I perceive the world as I perceive it now, truth cannot enter my awareness. I choose to let the door behind this world be open for me, so that I may look past it to the world that reflects pure formless awareness of perfect love. That's a similar to the previous.
Yeah. So the world I perceive, I think key point here is the world I perceive holds my fearful self-image in place. So the world is a projection of our self-concept. And if I perceive it from that self-image and self-concept, then it keeps the self-image going, keeps it in place, guarantees its continuance. So if I keep perceiving it in a certain way, then I keep reinforcing that self-image, and I remain asleep, remain attached to the self-image. I believe the self-image is me, and I'm in the illusion, I'm in the dream world. And while I perceive the world as I perceive it now, truth cannot enter my awareness. So instead, I choose to let the door behind this world be open for me, so I may look past it to the world that reflects pure formless awareness, perfect love. So asking us to open the door to another reality, another dimension, by changing our perception. People say, well, why do I want to perceive it differently? Because when you perceive it differently, you're opening the door to this other world, this other dimension that comes from beyond this world.
Yeah. I mean, it sort of sounds perfect and simple there. However, I do know myself that the veil and the ego is very persistent. Whew. Very, very persistent.
Because it's your self-image, you see, it's your self-concept. The world is a projection of your self-concept. That's what this first sentence is really saying. So the world I perceive from my split mind that's projected it out is just the world that the ego's made up. It's a story that is there to perpetuate the false self. That's all. And so, well, really, you're not just changing your perception, you are undoing your belief in who you think you are, which is profound. And difficult. This is why people struggle with forgiveness, because it's not just like you're letting go of the situation. You're actually letting go of your self-concept when you do that. So what I did by letting go of that, by listening to the spirit, I let go of the self-concept that was like, right, I'm the man, don't mess with me, don't take me on, I'm smarter than you, and, I'll show you that, which actually is very fragile and weak, because underlying that is the self-concept that I'm not good enough, you see? Because grandiosity and littleness just are both denials of the truth of who you are. If you believe in that grandiose self, then you're also believing in the little self that doesn't feel good enough, self that can be offended all the time by people and circumstances. So it was a dropping of that old self-concept, and then that opened the way for this community to grow. This community is all about a new self-concept. Well, I have to be that new self. And then I did the retreat very shortly afterwards, which took me into another space. And then it was like, okay, so I've got to be the change you want to see in the world. If you're going to be the sort of foundation of this community, you have to be it primarily first. And these challenges are just lessons in becoming that. So if you get a big challenge, it's perfect. It's meant to challenge you, to bring you into this awareness of who you really are, your higher self, and help you to live that, actually practice it. And then the results flow forward from that. Whatever happens in life on the timeline, we have a look at another diagram. Timeline flows forward from this higher awareness. So you don't have to try and consciously manifest, to try and consciously get the 140,000 Rand back would be a mistake, wouldn't it? So, well, let it go and just go forward on the journey, go with the flow, which I've been doing quite intensively for the last couple of years, because the program really went to another level then, and I've by and large continued it. I've carried on running the program pretty much continuously, and here we are. So that was that lesson was designed. Let's say it was one of these little points here, a seeming trauma, which could have become very traumatic and very difficult in my timeline. Actually, it ended up being a forgiveness opportunity, a forgiveness lesson, which helped me to transcend this whole timeline, to go above into my true awareness, and to bring that awareness back down into the world. And then things on the level of form in the timeline start changing because you've brought that awareness in. And I started to see a lot more flow. This program and the course, the program started working better and growing. Before that, I was, well, is this actually even going to work? So the previous course I'd run had 2 people on it. And, it needs a bit more than that to make it into something that's significant.
Mm.
So, by letting go, I allowed the flow to come through. When you let go, you allow this pure formless awareness of perfect love to flow through you, and it starts changing what happens on the timeline through you. So through influencing your decisions, your words, your actions, it changes how things play out. And then you start to see more beneficial, more helpful, more flowing things showing up on the timeline rather than the disasters and the traumas that may have been there. If I'd listened to the ego in that instance, it would have been a disaster. It would have been a major trauma because I wouldn't have got any money, and I would have gone. It was there on a plate for you. You could have had whatever. It was still quite a significant amount of money, like double what I was losing. Seemingly losing. I could have had that, and I didn't. And then it would have been amazing. See, the lesson would have got harder because then I would have had to let go of that loss. And then, how would I have continued? I don't know. I needed that money to continue on the journey.
Yeah.
So the lesson would have got a lot tougher. It would have been much harder to learn that forgiveness lesson than the one the lawyer presented. Is how it works. If you don't learn your lesson and you keep listening to the ego, then it's like the intensity gets amped up, and the subsequent lessons are even harder because you didn't learn.
Just keeps ramping it up.
Yeah, that is seems to be how it works. The more you resist, the more the lesson gets harder. Okay, well, you need a bigger lesson. You need more pain and suffering to wake up to this. So when these lessons come, this mind training is here to help you to identify, okay, I see it for what it is. It's a lesson, and I know what to do. I'm aware enough to remember the truth that I'm only really here. The only purpose, the only reason for my apparent life here is to let go of my ego. That's the only purpose. So this is another opportunity to do that. I welcome it. I will embrace it. I will do what's required because that decision is what's going to make me flow forward in a much happier, more peaceful way in this world. And we see that in this Holy Trinity diagram. So by listening to the Spirit, by listening to my true self and reinterpreting the world through the Spirit, Holy Spirit, which is the ability to change our minds about reality, to give us another interpretation. The Stoics, the Stoic philosophy, if you listen to today's podcast, would say, well, this is reframing. They talked about reframing the situation. So you have another frame of reference for everything. And that's what the Holy Spirit does. So I said it's true perception or Christ's vision. Or miracles, forgiveness, letting go, surrender. That then leads to a sense of flow. This is called listening to your intuition. Acceptance, it's been or salvation, oneness, enlightenment, and awakening. So there's many names for this process. Transformation would be another one. Transformation of your mind. And it's actually all the same thing. It's one process. It's a change of mind. And then a change in your perception about a particular person or situation. One of these timeline events. People, things, places, events, circumstances, situations, trauma, successes, failures, and all experiences seem to exist and happen in the physical universe of time and space. Can be reinterpreted, can be perceived differently, if you allow them to. And above all else, the message in this section is very clear. Above all else, that's what I want. Above all other things, this is what I want. This is what I choose. So you're making this at-one-ment process the be-all and the end-all of your life. Because this at-one-ment process, you know, is going to take you back home, all the way out of this dream into pure formless awareness of perfect love. So by following the means, which is this correction in mind and perception, you choose the outcome. So every time you forgive, you let go, you're choosing to go home, choosing to be in pure formless awareness of perfect love, because this is the mechanism of that choice. And you're saying, above all else, above the distractions of the world, above the temptations of the ego, I choose this and this alone. And the more you do it, the stronger you become it, just the more determined you become. So you go, well, yes, this is the only option. At some point, you recognize that there's no other choice. See, there is no other option. There's only this way. And that's then the collapsing of the dream. There's no longer another option or alternative. Duality collapses. There's just, there's only one way, which is truth. And the other way doesn't exist anymore in you. So then you don't have choice anymore. You have surrendered fully. Choice is still, you're believing in an alternative voice. The ego still offers you some. When you completely surrender, then choice is let go of. You don't need to choose anymore because there's only one way. And then you're so close to knowledge that perception just transfers over to knowledge. God takes the final step. As Yeshua, in other words, this awareness just kind of merges with your perception and obliterates perception ultimately. And you just merge back into this pure formless awareness of perfect love. Sorry, Elaine, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I've just got a message from my friend Sally. I've got her dog, so I've only got about sort of 20 minutes, then I can come back. So I don't know how you... Yeah,
okay, that's good. So why don't we finish this lesson?
Okay.
Do the last two. And then you can go if you like.
Yeah. And then I don't know whether the text, when you're doing that next? Tomorrow?
Well, I'm happy to join. No, I mean, the message is we need to carry on to the normal program. This is a non sequitur in the program because I wanted to do, it's Easter Sunday. It's the perfect day for the message of the crucifix to do it.
Right.
So, and I actually have the time. I don't have family commitments for the rest of the day.
Okay.
There was parents are coming, so I'm elsewhere. So so today's a good day. We can do it.
Okay. So
we can do it later. So,
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So number
4.
Next one, number 429. Perfect love is in everything I perceive.
Perfect love is in everything I perceive. Behind every image I have made, the truth remains unchanged. Behind every veil I have drawn across the face of love, its presence remains undimmed. Beyond all my insane wishes is my true awareness, united with the pure formless awareness of my source.
So
Pure
that'll be
formless.
just
Oh,
read
yes.
the original.
Mhm.
The original will
Yeah.
be
Beyond all my insane. Is it the beyond or yeah? Beyond all my.
we changed its light. So its light was its presence, remains undimmed.
Okay.
Beyond all my insane wishes.
But behind every veil I have drawn across the face of love, its light remains undimmed. And go do the next sentence.
Yeah. Beyond all my insane wishes
is my will, united with the will of my Father.
And then read the alternative.
And I have drawn across the face of love, its presence remains undimmed. Beyond all my insane wishes is my true awareness, united with the pure formless awareness of my source, pure formless awareness of perfect.
And then read the original. God is still
God
everywhere.
is still everywhere and in everything forever. And we who are part of him will yet look past all appearances and recognize the truth beyond them all.
And then the alternative.
And the alternative. Beyond all my insane wishes is my true awareness, united with the pure formless awareness of my source. Pure formless awareness, perfect love, is still everywhere, in everything, forever. And I, who am part of it, will yet look past all appearances and recognize the truth beyond them all.
Okay, so pure formless awareness of perfect love becomes a substitute for God. Will of my Father becomes the awareness of my source, pure formless awareness of my source. So it makes it much more practical and experiential, right? Perfect love is in everything I perceive because it's in my awareness. So I look past all appearances and I recognize the truth beyond them all. So he's asking us to look much more deeply. We don't look at the form, we don't look at appearances. We actually perceiving from our pure formless awareness of perfect love, and we perceive that awareness of perfect love everywhere and in everything. And we can do that because it's in our mind, as he states in the next one.
Yeah. God is in every. Should I read just the original first?
Yeah.
God
original
is in every,
and then alternative line by line.
Okay.
That's the best way to do it.
God is in everything I see because God is in my mind.
Okay.
In my own mind.
Read the alternative. No, then read the alternative. Perfect love is.
Perfect love is in everything I perceive because perfect love is in my awareness.
So, I mean, that's much more understandable, isn't it? Perfect
well, it just
love
takes
is in
the
everything
religion bit out, yeah.
Because it's in my own awareness. If I have that perfect love in my awareness, then I must perceive it because it's in my mind already. Whereas God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. A lot of people might struggle with it. Well, what do you mean? So you think God is somewhere outside of you, then you're going to struggle with that. And what does the word God actually mean? So the translations, no, it's just your own awareness. Your own awareness of perfect love is in everything you perceive externally because it's in your mind. And you are perceiving it with your mind or your awareness. So then it must be. If it's in your mind, it must also be in what you're perceiving. Because the awareness or mind and what is being perceived are not separate. This is part of the quantum principles. There is no reality in the absence of observation. So I am not separate from what I perceive. I am one with them. And if I bring my correct awareness, my right-minded awareness into everything, then I must see God, or pure formless awareness, or for short, perfect love, in everything I perceive, because it is in my mind, or my awareness, and nowhere else. And I'm seeing or perceiving not with my body's eyes and senses. I'm actually perceiving with my mind. That's the truth. So does that make sense?
It does.
Okay, so I'm going to read in my own awareness, in my own mind, be the original and then the alternative.
So God is in everything I see because God is not there. In my own mind, behind all my insane thoughts of separation and attack, is the knowledge that all is one forever. I have not lost the knowledge of who I am because I have forgotten it. It has been kept for me in the mind of God, who has not let his thoughts, and I who am among them am one with them and one with him.
Okay, so then translated.
Yeah, perfect love is in everything I perceive because perfect love is in my awareness. In my own awareness, behind all my insane thoughts of separation and attack is the knowledge that all is one forever. I have not lost the knowledge of who I am because I have forgotten it. It has been kept for me in the pure formless awareness of perfect love. That has not left its extensions, and I, who am among them, am one with them and one with it.
Okay, so thoughts on that?
Well, it's perfect love's there all the time, and yet we still get stuck into the insane thoughts of separation and attack. And
I think the key thing for me, and it's a great lesson I quote it quite often, is that it's in my own awareness. God is not somewhere outside of me.
Right. Yeah.
In my own awareness. And this is a correction for major perceptual distortion. Many people who are probably in church today, worshiping, they believe that God is somehow outside of them. That there's this entity called God, super being, that's somewhere outside of them. And it's kind of remote. It's a sort of off-planet God type idea who will maybe grant prayers if you're lucky, and if you're not, and you're sinful, then you'll get condemned by this entity. But it's not you.
Just
and that's a primary delusion. It's madness. That somehow this is outside of your awareness. So what does that make you? Where did you come from? The ego doesn't provide a good answer.
No.
Because it can't. If it gives you if you knew the answer, then the ego has to drop away. So the idea of the separate self drops away.
Yeah. Many people do believe in the God outside, though, don't they?
Yeah, because it keeps one separate from one source. It keeps you separate and alone and fearful and not accepting that this love is in your own awareness. That there's nowhere else you can find it but in your own mind. So you stop seeking outside of yourself. We talked about desire earlier. You stop that's craving and seeking outside of yourself. And you recognize that what you seek is in your own awareness right now. So you need do nothing because it's already there. And then we get miracles like the one I shared with the the money, and the miracle is just quite related to that, to show me and others, because it can share these things, that this is true, that actually you don't have to stress and strain and strive and effort and all that thing, all that stuff that the ego is telling you you need to do to survive here. There's another way. You can actually flow with things. You can let go and flow, and it works much better. Less effort, much less effort, and much more flow and peace and enjoyment.
No, I mean, I totally believe that. As I say, it's just at the moment, it's like a lot of us undoing this entrenched, insane separation thing that we all have. Yeah. But no, I totally believe that the belief in this perfect love and awareness, totally believe it. Yeah. But I have to now know it and be it.
Yeah. See, there's a difference between belief, so you believe it, but do you know it?
Yeah, well, I'm not quite at that stage yet, no. So, again, work in progress.
And so that's the work. We work on our belief by practicing it. So the lessons we get, the challenges we get, are the practicing of the belief so that it gets strengthened.
Yes.
One way or another. You're either going to practice the ego's belief system, or you're going to practice the Holy Spirit's. You practice it to strengthen it one way or another. And the more you strengthen the Holy Spirit belief, the more it becomes knowledge. So that's why he uses knowledge here. Knowledge that all is one forever.
Yes. Look forward to it.
Well, it's it's right here, right now. You see, in the moment.
Oh yes.
You get asked right then, in that moment, to accept it or not. You're going to accept it or deny it, depending on the decision you make.
Yeah.
If I accept that everything is one forever and that everything's okay, I'm perfect, whole, complete, then none of it matters. I'm not going to get attached to form outcomes, and I'm not going to desire things. But if I listen to the ego, then I'm believing in its thought system, and that's going to make me go in the opposite direction from the spirit. I can't reconcile it. We had that in the text recently, and again in today's text reading.
Yeah.
That there's a split in the mind that cannot be reconciled no matter how much you try. You will never reconcile spirit and the ego or the separate self, no matter how much you try. That's always the lesson.
Sorry,
so we must choose. Above all else, I want to choose differently.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. I'm going to.
You got to go.
I do actually. Yes. Yeah. Because she wants to go out. So I'm going to need to.
So when?
So what time can you?
When are you coming back? Well, you tell me. I'll stay connected if you like.
Yeah. No, it's going to be probably, to be honest, because I've got to drive there and I've got a couple of errands to do. So it's probably going to be about 5 actually.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. To be honest, that's going to be.
We can reconvene at 5 and do the text.
Yeah.
And that'll probably mean Susie. She'll probably have done her lunch.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and it might be able to get others.
Yeah, then you won't be alone to go through the message. It's quite a.
Yeah, because I had I was just going to say I had a bit of a late night last night, so I'm not exactly A1, but I'm talking physically, but I'm still in my awareness, so no problem. I'm still in my awareness.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you want to log on again at
about 5? Yeah. So I can get my errands and things done. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then.
Excellent. Okay.
Okay. Lovely. See you all later.
See you then.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Namaste.
Namaste.
Bye. All right. So anyone listening, we'll reconvene at 5 o'clock UK time. That's 6 p.m. South African time to today's text. We're going to do the message of the crucifixion. Following that, a half an hour showing the last half an hour of the Matrix movie where there's a resurrection scene. So join us then. Hope to see you later. Thank you to Elaine and Susie for the session. Namaste.